The number one question I get asked when it comes to making coffee cocktails, and specifically designing your own coffee cocktails, is where do I start? So today I thought it'd be a good idea to help you answer this question, and in order to do so, I'm going to show you an approach I call the complementary method. So this easy method will allow you to turn literally any coffee in the world into a unique and delicious coffee cocktail, and also help you refine your own kind of style and balance preferences when it comes to making drinks. By the end of this video, you should be able to start building your own epic coffee cocktails, building on the characteristics of whatever coffee you choose. So, with all that in mind, let's make some coffee cocktails. Alright, welcome back to the Coffee Cocktail channel, everyone. I'm Dan Fellows, and if you're new to the channel, it's all about coffee and cocktails, and if you're also into those things, it'd be awesome if you could click that subscribe and hopefully get lots of value from the channel. This video is the first in an ongoing series where I'll share different methods of designing your own coffee cocktail creations, starting with a very simple but powerful method. Using this complementary method, as I call it, we're essentially building drinks around the flavour profile of whichever coffee you choose. We'll take inspiration from each specific flavour note within the coffee that we find, and then we're going to translate this into an ingredient in the final drink that we serve, essentially making a caricature of the coffee in cocktail form, which is pretty cool. So you can get a really good understanding of how this method can be applied in practice. We're actually going to go through the process with two different coffees, which in many ways are very similar, but also are very different. And we're going to take inspiration from the flavour profile of each coffee to create two completely different cocktails inspired by how they taste. These two coffees, which have completely inspired the two drinks we're going to make today, I discovered through today's video sponsor, which is Trade Coffee. Trade Coffee is a US-based coffee subscription service with an amazing website that allows you to easily find the coffees to perfectly suit your own preferences. So when Trade reached out in order to sponsor this video, I was actually really excited because this particular method can be applied to literally any coffee in their library of hundreds of different coffees from over 55 of the US's best roasteries. For this episode, I knew I wanted to build the drinks around coffees on the lighter end of the roast spectrum, driven by fruity flavours, and I obviously went for the whole bean option so I can brew the coffee in a few different ways. Once I'd inputted all this information, I'll let Trade's website do its magic. You can choose how much coffee you receive based on your daily consumption. All coffee is roasted to order and shipped within 48 hours, ensuring you receive the freshest beans every time. Trade are currently offering a free bag of coffee with any subscription purchase. Just go to drinktrade.com/danfellows, which I'll also put here, to get your free bag. So thanks a lot to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this video and inspiring me to show you this technique. So let's dive into the coffees we're going to be exploring today. Based on those preferences I inputted, so a fruit-forward flavour profile with a light roast, we have these two wonderful coffees, which in many ways have a lot in common, but actually the flavour profile is completely different. So we have two coffees from Broadsheet Coffee Roasters. They're both from Rwanda, both from the Kanzu washing station, but the difference between the two coffees is we have a washed process over here and then a natural process here, which give completely different flavour profiles. So in the wash process, we're looking for orange pico, which is a kind of black tea. We're looking for raspberry and golden raisin, so that sounds like a kind of light and delicate coffee with those kind of tea notes leading. And then in the natural process, we have strawberry, plum jam, and demerara sugar. So this to me sounds like a more kind of intense coffee. So I think what we'll do is we'll lean into the light notes with a filter brew of the washed coffee, and then we're going to lean into the kind of heavy, jammy, syrupy notes of the natural process by brewing an espresso. So let's give these a taste, starting with the wash process. So for the wash process, I brewed this as a filter brew in a Hario V60 with 20 grams of coffee, 300 grams of boiling water with a total contact time of around about 3.5 minutes to 4 minutes. The goal of this was to really kind of highlight those characteristics with the tea-like notes, the berry notes, and that kind of dried fruit note of the raisin. And let's see if we've succeeded. Let's taste. One thing that is kind of important to note about tasting coffee is if you don't find exactly the flavour notes on the bag, that doesn't make you wrong. Don't beat yourself up about it. It just means when the roaster or the head of coffee or the Q grader tasted this particular coffee, under their circumstances, this is what they tasted. And although they're fantastic tasters, there are just so many variables that go into a cup of coffee. The results they get might slightly vary to the results you get based on all the variables which are either within or outside our control. So water, brew method, pouring method, all these different things will have a massive impact on the cup. So this is a guideline, but you need to taste what you taste. And if you really want to kind of increase your vocabulary of different tastes and flavour profiles, taste as much as you can. Coffee and non-coffee things, fruits, vegetables, all sorts of things, and it'll give you a really good kind of basis to understand different flavours. So that's my pro tip. Let's give this a taste. That is a delicious cup of coffee. I do agree with all the flavour notes they say on the bag, so they've definitely got the kind of tea-like character in there, which I think we should really lean into for the cocktail. There's a really profound berry-like sweetness, and that dried fruit is subtle and kind of underlying. So I do broadly agree. I think we should make a drink which is going to be light and refreshing and kind of lean into those tea notes. And I think the perfect thing to be inspired by would be iced tea. So what we're going to do is take our flavour notes that we broadly agree with, use this to inspire the ingredients in the drink and the kind of flavours we're going to find. So let's start building the drink. So what we're going to do is build it in a little mixing vessel, and this recipe can quite easily be scaled up or down according to how much you need. Multiply it by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever you want, depending on how many drinks you want to make. So the first thing we're going to add at the kind of base of the drink is going to be 50 mils of our wash process Rwandan. And one of the things you need to think about when you build any coffee cocktail is the intensity of the level of coffee in the drink. So I don't want this to be a really kind of heavily coffee forward drink. I want it to be a flavour that's in there. And then we're going to build that kind of caricature around the flavours of the coffee to create a drink that's kind of the same, but also very different. Looking at our flavour notes, we've got our orange pico, which is a type of black tea. And I think a cool thing to do would be to incorporate Earl Grey gin. So obviously this has a black tea base, but it also brings a little bit of florality, a little bit of citrus from the kind of bergamot character. And this is going to be the spirit in our drink. So I'm going to go 25 mils of this. Again, another thing to look out for is the intensity of the alcohol. We don't want to be overpowering the coffee with the kind of booziness of the drink. So 25 mils is kind of fine for this because we want to keep it nice and light and refreshing. So to make this is actually really, really simple. All you do is add 3 grams of Earl Grey tea, which is around about 1 bag, per 100 grams of a juniper forward kind of botanical heavy gin. Gin is a really good carrier of those kind of tea flavors because the botanicals really suit the kind of tea characteristics. So leave your tea or your tea bag in there till you've got plenty of color and plenty of kind of Earl Grey flavor into your gin. And then you either want to remove the tea bag or strain out your tea, and then you're left with your delicious Earl Grey gin, which is a very versatile ingredient. So now we've added this, which ties in with our kind of tea-like notes of the coffee, we want to really lean into the next characteristic, which is raspberry. So in order to add a raspberry flavor, I'm adding 25 mils of a sour raspberry syrup. And this is our kind of third balance consideration when it comes to building our coffee cocktails. So we've talked about coffee intensity. We've also talked about the level of alcohol and the kind of booziness of the drink. And the third thing we really do need to balance is our taste profile. So acidity, sweetness, bitterness, potentially salt and umami. And just like coffee, a good cocktail needs to have a balance of acidity, sweetness and bitterness, and maybe that salt and umami in there as well. So if I didn't add the citric acid, which is in our sour raspberry syrup, the drink would be far too sweet. And to make this, it's really, really simple. Just infuse 100 grams of crushed raspberries into 100 grams of golden castor sugar and 10 grams of citric acid. Give this a really good mix together and leave this for 12 hours, stirring frequently in the fridge. Once this is all macerated together and pulled the liquid from the raspberries, add 50 grams of boiling water, mix it fully to dissolve the sugar, pass it through a sieve into a bottle. So that's our second ingredient, tying in with the raspberry flavors and also bringing a little bit of acidity. And then the third flavor we're going to really kind of highlight and lean into is the golden raisin. And in order to do so, may I introduce one of my favorite ingredients in the world to pair with coffee, which is Pedro Jimenez. So this is a kind of sweet sherry, which basically tastes like liquid raisins. And this is very, very sweet, but it ties in so perfectly with coffee. So I'm adding 12.5 mils of this, and this is essentially our sweetener in the drink, hence the reason for the acidity in our sour raspberry syrup. That's our basis. All we need to do is give this a really good mix together without ice, just so we can mix the syrup into the drink so it doesn't sit on the bottom. And then to our mix of coffee, our tea-inspired ingredient, our raspberry-inspired ingredient, and our golden raisin-inspired ingredient, we're going to finish it off with some tonic water, which is just going to bring that really nice kind of sparkle, a little bit of effervescence, as they say. And I really want to get these really nicely mixed together, so I'm going to do the old double pour. To finish the drink, I just want to really pump up the kind of refreshing character, so I'm just going to express a little bit of lemon zest over the drink for that nice citrus character to tie in with the Earl Grey, just expressed like so. And then we're just going to garnish it with 3 raspberries to tie into our delicious raspberry flavour. Serve this with a straw, and there we have our iced tea inspired by the Kanzu wash process. So let's give this a taste and see if we've been able to kind of elevate all the flavours we found in the coffee and transform it into a delicious coffee cocktail. Cheers, everyone. I think that might be one of the most refreshing drinks I've ever tried. That is super delicious, does exactly what I want it to do. A little bit of coffee in there, which is kind of the basis of the drink. A little bit of that kind of Earl Grey tea really coming through, which is delicious, bringing back memories of an iced tea, which is exactly what we want. A perfect amount of coffee, perfect amount of booze, perfect balance from that really nice sour raspberry syrup, and actually not too much sweetness from the Pedro Jimenez, which is exactly what I wanted. We've got tea, we've got fresh fruit, we've got dried fruit. It's very, very refreshing with a little bit of sparkle and bitterness from the tonic. So, going back to taste the coffee briefly, I think that is a perfect caricature of the coffee, and now we should explore the second coffee, which is the natural process. So now we've applied the complementary method to the wash process, we're going to apply it to the natural process, which is a completely different flavour profile to explore. So because we were exploring the kind of light notes in the wash process, I really want to lean into those heavy, jammy, sweet, syrupy notes of the natural process, and in order to do so, I brewed an espresso. So I brewed this coffee on a Slayer single group espresso machine, which for me is the best machine I've ever used to really push forward body and sweetness. I used 18 grams of coffee for a 40-gram yield, 30-second pre-brew time and a 25-second full brew time, so in total a 55-second total contact time. And this really brought out all those really nice kind of jammy fruit characteristics and an amazing level of sweetness, which is one of the sweetest coffees I've ever tried. So I actually split the shot into two. We've got a single shot, which we're going to use in the drink, and now we have a single shot for myself. Cheers, everyone. Exactly the foundation we're looking for. Big, bold, red fruit, sweet. Leaning into the flavours, which I, again, really do agree with. Strawberry, almost like a stewed strawberry. Plum jam, demerara sugar. It's a very sweet shot, and we can build on these three flavour notes with our three ingredients that we're going to add to our drink. And we're going to shake the drink because we want to get that really nice texture that you get from shaken espresso. So the first ingredient we're going to add is our espresso itself. And when we think back to what we were talking about in the first drink, the coffee intensity, I want to be a little bit higher in this drink. So we're not going full kind of espresso martini coffee levels, but because we've got espresso, got that big jammy fruit characteristic, I'm actually using a single espresso, and this will bring plenty of that coffee flavour we're looking for. So to build our kind of caricature of our espresso, we're going to lean into the three flavour notes we get in the bag, the first of which being strawberry, which again, we're going to represent using a sour syrup, this time a strawberry syrup. I've added 20 mils of this, and this is actually made in exactly the same way as our sour raspberry syrup, with strawberries in place of raspberries. So this is a really versatile kind of template that you can use to apply to lots of different fruits. And it brings sweetness, but also that kind of bright acidity, which can balance the other sweeter ingredients. The next flavour we're going to build on top of is our plum jam. And anytime I want to add plum to any cocktail, I can't help myself but use umushu. So this is one of my favourite ingredients in the world once again. It's a really, really kind of complex and delicious plum sake, which again has some sweetness, but a little bit of vibrancy and acidity. So it's going to bring that really nice plum flavour to the drink. And then the final flavour note we're going to lean into is demerara sugar. So one thing you could do is use demerara sugar in your sour strawberry syrup to literally kind of take inspiration from that particular ingredient. But I'm adding 40 mils of demerara rum, which is El Dorado 3. So demerara in this form actually means the kind of region that it's produced in, not the sugar itself, which I think is quite interesting. But you could introduce demerara sugar if you really wanted to through the syrup. But we're going to use the kind of play on words to take inspiration this time, rather than the sugar itself, because we have plenty of sweetness. So now we've got our single espresso in here, along with 20 mils of our sour strawberry syrup, 20 mils of umushu plum liqueur, and then also 40 mils of our El Dorado aged white rum, which is our kind of spirit base. You could quite easily shake this up and make a delicious coffee cocktail, but I do have one last trick up my sleeve, which is going to really kind of bring this to the next level, and that's to season our cocktail. So if you've watched my videos before, you know I always add saline solution to almost every drink, but I'm also going to add a little bit of vanilla extract. So I'm adding 1 gram of saline solution, which really kind of ties all the delicious flavors together. And then I'm also going to add 1/2 gram of vanilla extract. And when we think of the flavors in this drink, demerara sugar works with vanilla, strawberry really, really works with vanilla, plum really nicely works with vanilla. So this is a really good bridge between all those kind of big flavors to kind of bring them together and create a really harmonious drink. Because we want to highlight that really big kind of foamy texture we can get by shaking espresso, you want to shake this up over lots of good quality ice. We're going to fine strain this into a frozen coupe glass. And then the garnish for the drink, which is kind of unique, is something that really, again, bridges all these ingredients together. And there's another form of seasoning, which is going to be a little grinding of black pepper. So let's give this one a try. Have we managed to recreate a cocktail, or a coffee cocktail, with the flavors of strawberry, plum jam, and demerara sugar? We shall see. Cheers, everyone. This one's a very unique coffee cocktail. It tastes like a coffee cocktail in that it's kind of reminiscent of an espresso martini, but I think using a single shot and then lots of kind of strawberry, fruit-forward, jammy flavors has created something that's really different to an espresso martini in such a good way. All the flavor calls we've looked for: strawberry, 100%, demerara sugar, 100%, plum jam, 100%. They're all there. It's like a big caricature of this particular coffee, and I think it's worked really, really well. You also get the really nice kind of pops of pepper, which really complement everything. The salt bridges it all together, and then the vanilla is very subtle, but it kind of ties everything nicely. And when you think about the vanilla, it's there, but if you didn't know it was there, I don't know if you'd spot it. It's a winner. So I really do think this technique is extremely powerful. You can apply this technique to literally any coffee in the world, and if you do so, which I think you should let me know how it goes in the comments below. Let me know what coffee you chose, the flavor characteristics of that coffee, and then how you kind of built on top of them to create your own coffee cocktails. And make sure you tag me on Instagram @danfellows1 with all your amazing coffee cocktail creations. Give me a follow there. Make sure you subscribe to the channel here. And a final thank you to our amazing sponsors of this video, which is Trade Coffee. So make sure you sign up for that subscription link below and you'll get your free bag of coffee. So win-win all around. You'll get some delicious coffees, use this technique, the complementary method, to make your own coffee cocktails, and you can subscribe to the channel by clicking here if you found this useful, and you can watch more coffee cocktail recipes here and here if you enjoyed the content. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers, everyone.